Okay, so here we go. Here we are today. A most glorious day to be alive. Jimmy here, coming to you from the rabbit hole all around me. So today, I wanted to share with you the way I've been living my whole life. It hasn't been the same. It's been ever changing. Ups, downs, all arounds, everywhere in between. Try to cover the gamut of experience. Don't get me wrong, I'm not always a thrill seeker. I'm not diving off freaking mountains, hang gliding and skydiving and all that stuff, even though part of that would be nice, fun, not sure, kind of crazy. I don't have the tendency to want to jump out of a plane, but anyways, I meander over to the left when I gotta come back over here to the right a little bit. Today I wanted to talk about the ups and downs of life and walking the line. So I think we all walk the line to our own degrees. Some of us fall under it quite a bit. Some of us rise above it. But what I think is important, I like the analogy of sailing on the sea. Say you're in a sailboat, it's got a deep keel under the surface, holding the boat steady as the winds pick up and push the boat along, filling the sails. And then you have the rudder to guide you along. You kind of pull a little this way, go that way, push a little that way, you return. And you find how to work with the storms, with the heavy winds, with the lack of wind, with the stagnancy. These are all great analogies on how life is lived and in good ways to do it. And so, although I know little about sailing, I'd like to know more someday. Maybe I will have a sailboat, we'll see. Been on power boats most of my life, but I like change once in a while. So that being said, walking the line, finding that fine line to carry you along. And you can't always be right on that line, like they say, the razor's edge. Walking the razor's edge, like living life to just about the extreme you can live it, and then freaking taking a little dip back, a little jump over the line. I think that's like an awesome way to live. But in reality, I don't think many people live that way. A small minority of people live on the razor's edge. The rest of us kind of fall under the line, often jump past the line, and I'd like to think not in good and bad and right and wrong, but in between areas, in the gray, because there's so much room for interpretation of what is your personal right and your personal wrong between one person to the next. Sure, there's a societal norm on what is best, but a lot of that is still, in my eyes, minutia, because if you're living from your truest self and you're living in your integrity of what is most important to you, then you need to let your heart guide the ship. Sure, you got to live within the society's confinements to a degree, but if you're not hurting another person, if you're doing your best and bringing your best to the table, then that's what's important. And that fine line of what works for you is the pivotal moment where you realize that you have the power to make your destiny. And although I do believe in some predetermined destiny, I believe we come here with a let's say a list of things we want to address in our lives, be it, to experience extremes or experience the stagnancy of life, to be a rich person, to be a poor person, to experience, near-death experiences, or to just live in this like extreme high level of, let's imagine living as a rock star or a pro athlete. But then on the flip side, imagine living as a person in the gutter, as a peasant, so there's all these extremes, and I think that from my perspective, it's nice to live somewhere in the middle of those and understand where that lowly perspective comes from, and also that intense perspective of living on top of the world. But not to be confused with, a peasant, I believe, can live from a place of enlightenment and live a good life, even though it's not the same life as, say, a superstar that lives in lofty houses and freaking, is surrounded by beautiful people. That doesn't mean that person is enlightened. That doesn't mean that person lives their best life. That just means that that's what has been portrayed through media, through television, as that's the life we all would love to live. And you look at, the narcissism in today's society, and we've fallen into that place. And I think it's important to like coil back into yourself and to realize that, that's not the only way, and it's the way of very few. To be honestly, the more of us, the majority of us live in a place of middle ground where we make the best of our day-to-day decisions. We work hard, we try to play, try to embrace our families. And I'm not saying that when you're on top of the world, you're not doing those things, but I think that it's easy to get lost in that space. And many have, if you, look into history of that genre of living life. So without adding too many things to the table, what I think is important, and that I learn each day a little bit more, is that you have to check yourself. You have to stay in check. What are your abilities? What gives you the willingness to want to thrive in your life? What are those things? Like for me, I'm finding more and more along my way is that I like to share my path a little bit. I won't say I'm an open book, but I like to share some of the pages of my story, and in hopes that there's some benefit to me of release, of compassion for my fellow man, and hoping that my fellow man and woman and child will see a light through my path, and even a darkness that has a reflection in them, and it helps them to move through those things and to keep carrying on, to grab the rudder, and to steer the ship into the winds the best they can. And when there's a lack of winds, to find out how it is that you can still carry on. I've had moments in my life where I just got lost in the mundanity of it all, and just feeling like, where is the richness? And coming to the realization quite suddenly sometimes is that it's all around you. It's in every single moment. It's always there for you to embrace. You just have to open your eyes to it. It could be like a little weed outside, blossoming a flower that blows your mind if you look deep enough into it. The green of the foliage in the spring, how brilliant it is. It's like it's a different green from the green of summer. It's like it's this yearning green of like potential. And so there's so many avenues to see that beauty in life, and to step outside that stagnancy. And it's just to continuously remind yourself that it's there, and not to get lost in the lows. I recently saw a show, and it was quite amazing. It was a very intimate setting, one of the most intimate settings I've seen a show of somebody who's highly talented and, like, in my eyes, tuned into the world. Her name was Haley Jane, and got to see her last week, and I got that she's like right in the currents of life, and she spoke about what happens sometimes after having a really good show or two shows. Like all of a sudden, there's what they call the dip, and it's like the blues after a show. You go so high, all of a sudden, you kind of fall into a slump a little bit. And I think that's the natural flow of life. But like she said, sometimes you just gotta like get yourself out of it. She said she spent 3 days in that dip, and she's like, suddenly I just had to get myself out. And she's like, I got into nature, and that was kind of like the song she was singing about. Is like, get yourself into nature. When you fall flat and you're seeing stagnancy, there's something about nature that pulls to you. The green, the life, the flow, the ever changing of seasons, especially in New England. You see that so brilliantly. The fall and the winter, the rest, and then the resurgence of spring, and then the thriving of summer. These are all huge things to pull you out of that freaking stagnancy. And it's okay to be in that stagnancy. It's just to remember, like don't get stuck in those dips. That's the things that cause depression. And I've had mild bouts of that in my life, and fortunate to say I found ways to ignite my passions and get through that. But still, there's days and moments where you fall into that place, and you gotta honor that and then move forward from that. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with y'all today, and I could go on, but I want to keep it somewhat brief and poignant, and just remember to find the way to keep that wind in your sail to a degree. And when it lets up, know that you have this root to the earth. Get out there in nature, feel the wind in your face, even if it's just a mild little breeze. Feel it touch your skin, the temperature on your skin, the change of the feelings on your, the silica of your skin. Yeah. So that's what I have to share today. Love you guys, gals, everybody, all beings. Be well. Jimmy out.